All right.
Hello and happy Men's Health Month. Fellas, listen, this episode is especially for you. Have you been told to suck it up, be a man, don't cry, and do it all without any complaint and really don't even talk to anybody about it? Well, if that is the case, that could be standing between you and your healing and your ultimate better health. And so we are going to create a safe space for you on today. We are going to talk about how toxic masculinity is negatively impacting your health and some things that you can do about it. Now, if this is your first time joining, welcome. This is Lessons Beyond the Stethoscope, where we provide practical health tips and tools that you can use in your everyday life. I am Dr. Ashley Booth. I'm a board-certified family medicine physician, the owner of Healing Beyond the Stethoscope Primary Care, and your host on today. Now, we have a very special guest who's joining us. It's Dr. Christopher Pugh. He is an accomplished educator and coach, and I could just go on and on with all of the things that he does because he is absolutely amazing. But he is very passionate about emotional intelligence and effective communication. So thank you so much and welcome to the show today, Dr. Pugh.
Thank you so much for the invitation and a warm welcome. And I just thank everybody who's actually going to be looking at this video to get clarity, not necessarily to agree with everything that we're going to say, but the biggest goal right now today is to make sure everyone who watches this video is less confused. That's the main goal. Yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
Thank you.
No, you're absolutely welcome. And what I said, because I didn't even realize when I reached out to you that when we decided to meet up and actually do the show today, that it's the kickoff of Men's Health Month. Yep. And what I understand is men have some unique needs. Now, I know a lot of men, but I am not a man. So I appreciate you being here because you understand some of those things and challenges that come up. And the issue is a lot of times with those needs, men are overlooking them. And they're not taking care of them because they're like, I'm a man. And a man's supposed to do this, and a man's supposed to be tough, right? But that can lead to some issues. And I was like, well, what is it? What does it mean to be a man anyway? Like, what is masculinity? And I actually go to the dictionary because you think you know something. I was like, well, I think this is what a man is. But I went and I looked it up, and it said that it is essentially social expectations. And my mind was blown because I was like, that's what it is. And once you think about culturally and how people move in different situations, I was like, that makes sense. Social expectations.
Yep.
And so sometimes what happens, masculinity is not bad. And I want you guys to understand that. We're going to talk about that. Masculinity is not bad. But what is bad is toxic masculinity, because what happens is those expectations can become harmful. They can put up certain types of stereotypes. This is what it means to be a man and stuff like that. And it can show up in some ugly ways. Dr. Pugh, talk to me about some of the negative ways that you have seen, toxic masculinity is negative in the first place. But some of the ways that you've seen it show up.
The first way it shows up is for people who are not men speaking about men and for men. That's the first thing, right? So one of the things that I found out and I observed as I was going into manhood is that masculinity and manhood have been merged together without a lot of people having in-depth conversations about what they are. Masculinity is more the physical aspect, the physical prowess, the physical representation of men, right? However, we all know that in order to be human, you have spirit and flesh. So unfortunately, in our society, we have been kind of downsized to what we look like physically, and the spiritual realm is being ignored. That's what I'm saying. So as we look as if we are human beings, and unfortunately, what I've seen quite a bit is that it's extremely difficult for men to be human beings. So when someone's saying is be a man, that's by default. But what they're saying is what you're doing right now is extremely inconvenient for my comfort. And unfortunately, for a lot of men, we have been shown that other people's comfort means more than our presence. And so what you have over the years is a lot of people, men specifically, who have had to make sure everyone else is safe, even if they weren't. And so we've had this perpetual behavior of making sure everybody's okay when we're not. It even starts as young boys. When you see other girls crying, or when you see your mother crying, and there's no other man around, you go into this realm where you are in a boy's place with a man's responsibility. And that's what a lot of confusion comes from. If there's a lot of expectations of to be a man, but like I said earlier, the people who are not men try to hold a threshold or try to hold expectations over your mind, right? So I'll give you an example. Growing up, little kids will ask you to, they will dare you to do something and say you'll be the man if you do it. So now manhood is something you have to prove instead of something you have to experience. Does that make sense? Right. So what I'm finding out more and more as I go through this journey of manhood, first of all, it is personal. So it's hard for somebody else who does not have your assignment to let you know what your assignment is, right? Our assignment was given before we even appeared in our mother's womb, right? And if people, and I'm not necessarily asking people to agree with me, but if you believe that our spirit and our, was existed before our flesh, that means we had something going on before we even had a fleshly body, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in this world really looks at us as physical beings, and that's it. The spiritual aspect of us is kind of like, I've said inconvenient before, but a lot of people just don't understand it, and a lot of people fear what they don't understand. So I'll give you another example. Have you ever seen where a man is just specifically being honest? Then all of a sudden it goes from his statement to his tone and how he makes other people feel. So what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of men have never been told or properly educated on how things get flipped when they are a human being, because a lot of people can't handle men being human beings at the same time. Even men can't, because we've been told that we are threats to each other. That's the reason why brotherhood and friendship is so important, because in any time when you're dealing with military conquest, and we got to be honest about this, the land that we live in specifically is in the condition after military conquest. It wasn't just because everybody felt okay. They needed men to be soldiers, right? And it's the reason why we have a huge military industrial complex, is because now we all equate freedom with military. So if you're not even acting like you're in the military, what good are you? You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's where I had to find out, because our manhood existed before the United States. Our manhood existed before any continent was created. You know what I mean? Right. Manhood is, and honestly, in this, I would say, economic environment that we're in, the biggest confusing thing right now that is causing a lot of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts is the economic manipulation of manhood. A lot of people think money determines manhood. And so now when I have a lot of my clients, when they start going into this deep, dark hole about how much money they make, I always have to ask a question to snap them out of that dark space. And I always ask them, which one is older, manhood or money? Mm-hmm. And then, they'll say, okay, well, now if you look at it like that. So I say, well, let's look at the world we're in. Remember, anytime where there's confusion, there's usually inversion. So if you have anything in alignment, somebody's going to flip it, right? So if manhood existed before money, in order to control men, we have to flip and say that money determines the manhood. And it's complete falsehood. And that's the reason why it's causing so much depression and anxiety. And honestly, a lot of people are frustrated, but we live in a world where a man shows frustration. He's not a human. He's a threat. And I'll end it with this example. And I mentor a lot of my young ladies who are in middle school and high school. I always have to ask them to hear me out when I say these types of things, right? Because what a lot of people don't know, there's a lot of physical assault that's going towards boys. And then when they grow up to be men, all the abuse has already happened. Okay, so it's two things I want to share with you before I'll let you the mic back to you. I always ask people, I said, now, if you really believe in equality, can you guarantee that men and women have the same consequences when they're emotional? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people love to say, well, men need to express themselves more. Great. You are correct. I agree. However, if the environment is hostile, we have to make a choice whether we're going to feel better or we're going to have a future. And that's reality for us. If we're going to feel better in the moment or we're going to try to live for another 10 years. That's what a lot of men have to deal with, right? There was this, I don't know, I grew up in the 80s, right? And I used to hear this saying a lot. And it confused me as a kid, but then I found out how it affects a lot of men growing up, right? So there was this saying that girls are sugar, spice, and everything nice. You ever heard of that saying before?
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. Yeah, everything that rhymes, it sticks into the brain because anything that rhymes has an effect on our mental space, right? Images and poems. That's the reason why a lot of people love to paint and our artists write poems. That's the reason why they're so important, because images and words and tones matter, right? So if you say girls are sugar, spice, and everything nice, that means even if they're wrong, they're right. Right? And unfortunately, that offers confusion. Like I said before, one of the biggest culprits of depression and anxiety is confusion. So you have little boys who are looking at a person who's doing something, but if they are innocent because they're a girl, or you need to leave her alone because she's a girl, subconsciously, a lot of boys and men have put women above them. That's inhumanity already. That means you can't even be a human being because they're the only person that's allowed to be a human being in this space, right? And I'm not saying that women are not mistreated. We're just sticking specifically to the topic of sugar, spice, and everything nice. Now look at the flip side of this, right? Have you ever heard of the boys' version before?
I did. It's funny you mentioned it. I can't recall what it says, but I know the girl one, but I can't remember what the boys was. Like snakes.
And that helps me prove my point. Because we remember the girl one because it's positive, right? What's the reason why we forgot the male one? Boys are snakes, snails, and puppy dog tails.
Yep.
Right? So now subconsciously, men have already begun to think that there's something wrong with them, that no matter how they feel, they are already evil, right? And also, too, we have to be very, very transparent and clear about this. This world is heavily influenced by the emotions of women. We just got to be honest about it. Now, a lot of times we start talking about, well, guys run the world. I always say, you know what? You may be right, but we have to be honest about which men run the world. It's a lot of men who are not allowed to be men because in order to run the world, you have to keep men in check. So I give the mic back to you.
No, you have brought up like so many points that I didn't want to stop you because I was like, this is so good. It's interesting that you mentioned that one point about the money situation because that has been a huge topic on like social media right now, and a lot of men are feeling a certain type of way because they're hearing about the list. You need to be this tall. You need to make this much money. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like all of these different things, and when you put that out there, it's like, well, how is a man supposed to feel about this? Because we're putting this in, and then someone else told me the statistic on it was like they're talking about these six-figure salaries. It's like, do you even know what the percentage of people? You put all the people together, what percentage actually even make six figures? So we're putting, and I think it's like maybe 10%, 50% of the population. I don't even know if it's that high. So it's a very small percentage. So then we're saying this is where you need to be. You need to attain this very, very small percentage, and that is how I'm going to define you. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And the comment section is like going up right now too. It's like, there's a saying that boys will be boys. And then they've never even heard the one about the boys. I knew about the boys and the snakes and something, but I couldn't remember exactly how it went. And they're like, they hadn't even heard of it because, like you said, that's the one that we don't, because it's negative. And so touching on the confusion part, because to me, when I think about confusion, I think about frustration. And then I also think about aggression and violence. And that's another thing, right? And they kind of go together. And so I feel like that is also a part of the toxic masculinity.
Yep. And I will tell you this. just the label itself, toxic masculinity, is just an adult version of snakes, snails, and puppy dog tails. A lot of people don't know that, and as a kid, I used to wonder, hey, a snake. How like how are we? We're not even all three. And what's funny? Now, I'm gonna tell you some wild stuff now because I had to study words for my doctor, and I found out there's a curriculum in gender comprehension. Right? If girls are sugar, spice, and everything nice, they didn't say some things nice. They said everything nice. So there's an assumption there, right? Now, guess what happens? Sugar and spice and everything nice. Yeah, it's not human, but they're positive, right? The boy version, they're animalistic. They're really non-human. They're not a product. They're literally animals, snakes, snails. And we ain't even the dog, we the tail. You understand what I'm saying? So now, you really, and so what happens with confusion, when you don't check falsehood and deception, it becomes a label that determines value. I'm going to say it again. Anytime when you don't check falsehood and lies and deception, it becomes labels that determines value, right? And labels are usually used to determine value on products, not people. And usually when you label people, like I'll give you an example. Just starting off with negativity at a young age. Right now, I have mentees that are young ladies in middle school that are telling me all men cheat. And I'm looking at the brainwashing. I'm sitting up here like, you're 12, And I was like, for a 12-year-old to tell me about all men, that's a problem. And so now we have to ask ourselves, right? And it may not have to be religious, but we have to be honest. Our image and our likeness is at the beginning. One of the main things people do in order to destroy a people is destroy the image. Then you're going to destroy the likeness just based off cause and effect. If the image is negative, the likeness will leave, right? So the first thing you do is not only destroy the image in propaganda and cartoons and TV shows, but our image is being destroyed in conversations that we're not even a part of. And I'm going to tell you how deep this goes. I want people to just listen to this question, right? If men have been told that they're evil since they're boys, how often do you think they would try to prove that they're a good person by dating someone that don't even like them? You see what I'm saying? So now if you already think you're not a good person, you will tolerate abuse. And a lot of people are seeing this, not just in social media, but they're seeing, what the first social media was? Your family. A lot of people don't want to admit that. But how many of us saw our fathers and our brothers disrespected? Now, it's not popular to talk about it because he was supposed to be in and take it. You see what I'm saying? So he was supposed to be a man and take it. So, and a lot of people say, well, why does granddad or why does dad not talk to us? The question is, now that's a valid question. I think that's one of the most important questions. But there is a prerequisite to that question. The prerequisite to that question is how many people know how to and even try to listen to him without telling him how he felt.
That's good.
I'm telling you, most of my clients, remember, this is not just my opinion. Before I started doing this work, I did a lot of mentorship, right? And I mentored a lot of people, not just boys. Most of my mentees were young girls. And their distorted image of men affected their choices in men, right? And not only that, it's hard to respect yourself when you've been told to hate half of you. Let's just think. Because if you think all men are dogs and you came from a man, we were born of a woman, but we came from a man. We can't just X them out and act like men just don't have anything to do with our humanity, right? And I want y'all to hear me. We have to understand deception and falsehood, because now it's getting to the point who's good and who's bad. Gender is different than character. We have replaced character with gender. And that's why we end up trying to say, oh, she's a woman, she must be good. And then you'll ignore her character and waste the next 40 years of your life. That's what a lot of men are doing. To the point, I'll give you this. We notice that our households are in a very unique situation. I won't say they're broken because I don't know every household, and I want people to hear me loud and clear. Our community is not the only community dealing with this issue. People to know that, because social media is not the real world. The social media is based off who you chose to follow. Okay. So I want everybody to hear me loud and clear. We have a lot of opinions about the people we choose to follow, but the people we chose not to follow, trust me, they getting it too. And that's one thing about diversity. It's one thing about being around your own. When you start talking to other people, you'll start being a little bit more human instead of just being a part of a group. Okay. Now, one of the things I have found out is that the way we speak to each other, the way we listen to each other, and the way we interpret each other's presence is extremely important. Okay. Now, like I said before, our households have been tilted, right? We cannot ignore the fact that warfare has affected everyone's home, but specifically people with Black status. Does that make any sense? So watch this. We had men in the household all the way up after slavery, all the way up into the 60s. Okay. And I always ask, I said, why is the 60s always brought up? And I used to, like, what's going on with the 60s? I know the heroin and the cocaine was flowing, but it's something different because everybody was doing it, right? I found out that men who don't have the highest status in any community, you usually get drafted first in warfare. Now, watch this. We start talking about the war on drugs, but we're not talking about warfare in general. Our fathers and our brothers were drafted and they were put on the front line first. And until we have a conversation about that versus why they just left the home, no. The vast majority were driven out of the home, kicked out of the home, or drafted into the military. And everybody who was left was non-threatening. People know who they draft, and this is not an excuse. And see, and you know, I'm around a lot of people who don't know how to listen and love to change the narrative instead of listening to my statements. Right? No one is excusing abuse. That's not the statement. Abuse is abuse, right? Right now, we're talking about the distortion of an image. That's the issue. Images have a key role in how we comprehend anything. Children draw before they can read. Why? Because images have an effect on the brain before they even know what a word is. They can draw their parents. They can draw cartoons. They can draw everything. So how important do we think images are to children, right? So now if they have to hear, let's look at a child who has to hear that their father ain't nothing. Here for years. What a lot of people don't know is this whole negativity about an image. It will make you choose something that you already feel just to prove that you're right. It's not necessarily a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some people just enjoy not being wrong. So if your whole life you've been told men are nothing, and you've been saying men are nothing, guess who you're going to choose to make sure you're right? And being right feels better than being honest. We have to be really, really transparent about that. And most of the men that I'm dealing with who have a high level of anxiety, trying to prove their worth, prove their manhood. And I will tell you this, I tell people all the time, and hopefully if they're listening, they will hear me loud and clear. I tell my clients this all the time. You never sprint your victory lap. Manhood is an assignment given to you before you were even born. Masculinity is your flesh assignment, right? But manhood is a spiritual assignment. Nobody on this planet who didn't give you your spirit or your soul or your body can determine what you're going to do with the assignment that was given to you by the most powerful force in existence. That's what a lot of people don't know. And unfortunately, what we have done and allowed to be done over and over again is we have eliminated our purpose. I'm talking specifically about men. We have erased our purpose to make somebody else comfortable, happy, or tolerate us. And that right there I don't know what word that's serious enough to really, really culminate what I just said, but it's just anti-truth, and honestly, it's anti-God at that point.
Mm.
Our
Wow.
image is distorted that we don't even think we deserve peace. Some of us. Now, some of us are coming around now, but some of us think that manhood is suffering. No, manhood is sacrificial. That doesn't mean it's suffering. That's why a lot of people don't understand. Just because you're sacrificing for your family doesn't mean you have to be depressed because you married a woman that don't like you, or you married somebody. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I like that because I even like the part of you sitting there with the manhood is suffering, because I think a lot of people think that I have to suffer. I don't deserve peace. I have to sit and take it. From a healthcare perspective, the other thing that I see is I don't go to a doctor again because I'm a man. So I don't go to a doctor. I'll figure it out. I'll do what I need to do. This cough will just take a little cussing and I'll be fine. And it's like sometimes we gotta do a little bit more than that. Or there are certain procedures that are needed that can be a little invasive. But it's like I'm a man, so I don't do those types of procedures. I don't do a prostate exam. I don't do colonoscopies. And I'm like, that can end up leading to suffering because we're trying to prevent some things, but you're like, no, I don't do that. So then I'm not going to get the help that I need. So I appreciate you bringing that up. The other thing I want to ask you too was, we talked about those ways of how it shows up with the suffering and stuff, but there's probably some other subtle ways that it could show up. And one of the ways I feel like is we don't ask for help. Men do not ask for help. I don't ask for directions. I don't need you to come help me do this. I will figure it out. How have you seen that show up as well? Because to me, it's like a communication piece, and I know that is really big into what you do. How is it affecting them from that standpoint? Where I don't ask for help. I'm a man. I'm supposed to figure it out. I'm supposed to do it by myself.
Right. So it goes all the way back to men are what men are supposed to do, but no one knows how a man is supposed to feel. Right. Mm-hmm. Usually people say a real man will provide. Okay. Well, if I'm supposed to provide, how can I provide if I need help? Then people are going to be looking at me all crazy. Right. Now, all of us who have been assigned manhood and chose it, we have to figure out that crossroads between my responsibilities and my ability to get help, because I had to find out this and I had to stop lying about it. Life is a team sport. I want somebody to hear me when I say this. None of us, no one got here by themselves. And I'm going to tell you how life is such a team sport. It took a team in order for us to get here. Think about how many ancestors had to stay alive and not only sacrifice, but they had to serve. Service and sacrifice is not suffering. They just had to do both in order for us to have a chance to be here, right? So guess what? It took a team in order for us to even have life. So just the concept of doing it by yourself is deception. That's the only way I can really put it. It's deception, it's falsehood, and it's a distortion of an image. Making sure you do something by yourself is the biggest lie ever told. Now, you're supposed to be autonomous. That means you're not supposed to just have other people do things for you, like wash your face. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like your grandma, you say, man, you need to go in there and wash your tail. Ain't nobody finna do that. You understand what I'm saying? There's a such thing as being an adult. There's a thing as being an autonomous human being. There's a such thing as being able to do things on your own free will. Remember, we were given free will, but we were also given a community of people to support. Mm-hmm. That doesn't, you know what I'm saying? See, free will does not mean you're by yourself. That doesn't make any sense. Honestly, our free will is we've been given the opportunity to choose how we receive that help. And I will tell you this, my mental health went up exponentially when I started receiving the help I prayed for. And a lot of people don't know this. And this is not just a man issue. This is just a people issue. People have a pride issue, right?
Right.
Right. Because men have heard that people just don't need men. So now they got to deal with that. I said, hold on, I'm supposed to provide, but you don't need me. What am I supposed to do? Like, what am I even here for? And that's not a fault. We just repeating things that sound like it's supposed to be repeated, right? But I tell people all the time, it's not who lied to you, it's the lie you chose to believe that affects you the most. Because lying is legal and lying is lucrative. That's what I want people to understand. It's legal and it's lucrative. People are not going to stop doing it. Right. They're not going to stop doing it, specifically if they're benefiting economically from it, right? Because a lot of people prop up their image off our distorted image. Some people don't have the life they have until we have the life we ain't supposed to have. You know, I tell people all the time, people build up their homes from the wreckage from our broken homes. That's the whole battle from the have and the have-nots anyway, to make sure that you don't have someone who's supposed to build available. The builders left, the guardians left, they were taken away, or they have been compromised to the point that people don't even want to be guardians anymore. Manhood is very scary too. I want to just literally say that, because if you have an emotional decision, right? You know, a lot of people want men to be emotional, and we just based off to your point, how does it affect our ability to receive help, go get to the doctor, all these different things, right? Just the fact if you actually need help, based off how people have been miseducated about manhood, it may not even be safe for you to ask for help. And something that we have to be honest about. And it's one thing about pride, but it's another thing is if you have an emotional outburst. I have a gentleman now, he's a veteran. He just had a psychotic episode where he felt like he wanted to commit suicide. Well, he had a weak moment, right? He's now going through a divorce because of it. Now, there's other men who are watching it saying, hold on, you reached out for help and you had a weak moment? You about to lose your life? Okay, then. So that means, you know, we just start doing our own little research. We're witnessing what happened to men who let the world know how they felt. And we got to be honest about that. How have the men been treated once they were honest? Can we at least have that conversation before we start having expectations? But because you can't really have expectations without honesty about the past. Why does our grandfather not smile in the picture? Now, and one thing I will tell you, and I got seniors that I'm giving therapy to now. And one senior told me, young man, y'all can believe whatever y'all want to on these little movies and all of this stuff. He said, but I want you to ask yourself how many grandfathers had that family because there was a shotgun wedding. And I don't know, a lot of people don't understand shotgun weddings. Is when someone forced you to marry their daughter because they thought you got her pregnant. Mm-hmm. So you know what I mean? So, and I'm not blaming women. What I'm saying is, and when we're in a military type of community and we have military laws, unwritten laws in our minds that you're disposable, you know, you can be killed at any moment. You're supposed to die for everybody because you love them. Right now, we're trying our best to humanize ourselves. That's the issue. When a man becomes a human being, he's now inconvenient. That's the reason why it's hard to ask for help, because as soon as we become a human, everybody gets depressed around us. And honestly, most of us have been told that we're responsible for happiness. So other people's depression is our failure. That's the confusion behind it. So you see people crying, the first thing you're saying, well, I think I was born to solve problems. Clearly, people are sad. Maybe I need to solve the problem. And if there's not really any problem at all, you start thinking you are the problem. And some people who don't even understand their problem, they've been trained to say the man is the problem. So everybody's confused and lying.
Oh. So this is so deep. Like, you just opened another layer that I wasn't even thinking about. That's why I'm so glad you're here to give this perspective, because there's so many other aspects of it that I didn't, but it makes so much sense. And so if you're having to sit with that, like you said, because I know, like I said, communication is your thing. Now you have, this is your gift, this is your calling, this is like your ministry, all of it, because You were born to do it. You even say how when you were a child, you were kind of like your parents' marriage counselor because you're like, let me figure out how to help you guys communicate this thing. When you were a student, you were actually a student mediator because they said, okay, we see that you know how to resolve conflict. Can you come in here and help these students kind of figure this thing out? And so people saw that gift and saw that you were able to do it, so you understand how important it is. Then you got your education to back it up, right?
Right.
And so my thing is with the communication piece, like how do people do it? Because you have been told, or I say you, like a person has been told for a long time, don't say nothing, you don't talk about it. When you talk about it, that you must be very weak, like you know, because you're supposed to figure out. So you're dealing with all of this. Like I got to do something with this, and I know there's a better way. But then I don't even know how to do it. Or if I say something, people are like, well, what you talking? Why are you saying it? Like you see what I'm saying? There's so many different ways. So how do they even start this process of communicating, and not just regular communicating, effective? Because sometimes you can talk, but then people are not listening because they're like, listen, you just said a bunch of words, but it really didn't go anywhere with me. So how do you do that? How do they start that process?
You know, like I said earlier, manhood is so unique, it's specific, and it's personal. It's not just one of those things that we can just say you'll be a man if. It depends on my earthly assignment. It depends on the family that I was assigned to, what my environment was, what my foundation was, my education, and my miseducation. We have to be honest about that, right? So now, how do we do that? Now, I will give you what I saw and that worked for me, and I will include what has worked for other men. Okay. What has worked for me is when I started realizing that people pleasing is a disease when you're not one of the people. When we start putting people above us and told we were supposed to do that, but people weren't transparent about the whole picture. See, some people just think everybody else is supposed to be happy. And we've been told that other people are supposed to be happy. Well, if they're supposed to be happy, even if they did something that was horrendous, now we're not even being honest anymore. We're just trying to make sure that they're happy, even when they're not supposed to be at the moment, right? Unfortunately, like I was mentioning earlier, how do we get to that point where we can actually start communicating? Self-respect is deeper than just feeling good and happy. I think what a lot of men had to really start being honest about is our happiness is important, but our assignment and what we're supposed to be doing is the priority. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to be sad. Unfortunately, we're supposed to be, not unfortunately, we had a lot of people who prioritize a feeling over what they're supposed to be doing. So now you got a lot of people trying to feel better by being dysfunctional. So they're just in a whirlwind of being dysfunctional. Well, I'm feeling good, but it's a temporary fix. And now they need another high. They need to go do that drug. They got to sleep with that person. They got to go fight that person. They got to go aggressively attack that person. It's a constant hunt for peace, right? And still, until we start understanding that our peace is internal, and then our expectation is not as powerful as an inspection. That's what a lot of people don't know. An inspection is when you look inside, when you figure out, hey, what am I doing to make my life a little bit harder? All right. What am I doing that makes life more difficult than it's supposed to be? Life does not need help with difficulty. Unfortunately, we love playing sidekick, right? And we kick ourselves right in our own butt, right? However, we got a lot of us who have no idea how to look inward and define what it means to be healthy. We're constantly doing what other people told us to do without a comprehensive thought process behind it. Now, a lot of people, and this is what has helped me, and this is what helped a lot of men. It's one thing about remembering words, but if you can recite something you don't understand, you're basically a robot or a zombie at that point, right? So if I'm saying something and I don't understand it, I have to stop saying it until I know what I'm saying. That's key. That has really increased my level of mental health and increased my perception about life. Some of the things I was just saying just because I was saying it. And I don't even know what it meant. I don't even know where it came from. But I had to stop repeating things I just did not understand. That's step number one. Also, too, we have honestly worshipped and idolized women's happiness. Women's happiness has become a false god to a lot of us, where we think as long as she's happy, I can have a life, right? But a person's happiness never gave you life. So as soon as somebody puts another person's happiness in control of their life, they just gave their life up. But we're looking at it as romantic. Now, the reason why I bring up romantic is because the way we approach each other has a very unique cultural aspect to it. And I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of people, my mentor asked me this too. What's the key word to romantic? What would you say? What's the key word to romantic? Huh? Romance. And what's the key word to romance?
Man,
Roman. Guess what happens? We are practicing Roman culture anytime where you uplift someone before you even know them. It's based off uplifting her gender and not her character. It's basically wooing someone before you even know who you're choosing. See, a lot of us been told to impress women without engaging them. That's what's really messing us up, because we've been told, hey, you go out there, be sweet. Don't tell her who you are. Just make her feel good about whatever's going on. She's been told as long as if he don't make you feel good, don't choose him. So guess what? Our entire family structure is based off emotions and no evidence and no engagement. Right now, it's got to the point now, and a lot of people don't understand why I talk so much about relationships, is because I can't mentor kids without mentoring the adults about why they chose each other in the first place. How do we get there? I found out that a lot of parents resent the fact that they chose their co-parent. A lot of them are embarrassed. A lot of them are resentful. And a lot of them have low self-esteem because they have witnessed that they had a child with somebody they didn't even know. Okay. Now, children can feel that embarrassment. They don't even know the words yet. But I'm looking at all the children who have to hear so much negativity by their other parent. And now what a lot of parents don't understand this, it's hard for a child to respect you. They love you, but they can't respect you when they find out that you laid down with somebody you didn't even like. And see, that's why I try to tell parents a lot, your petition is killing a relationship with your child. It's killing them. So now back to your question, how do they get up out of it? The adults who brought them here have to be honest. If mom had a one-night stand with the child's father, they need to say that, because their dynamic needs to be talked about. Right? It's not just your daddy wasn't here. No, I met your dad in another state when we were down there in Freaknik in 98. Now, that's extremely uncomfortable, is it not? Because you might lose your position of doing announcements in the church when they find out. There are consequences to telling the truth to your child. But how about this? I'd rather lose my position than lose my child. I'd rather lose my status than lose my family. See, your child goes out, and guess how many of us went to the world not knowing why our parents got married or divorced? We just drawing conclusions. So we come from a background where everybody got family secrets and everybody let their pride get in the way of honesty. Now we're sending our children out into the world not even knowing why they're even here. So our self-esteem is affected by family secrets. I see it all the time. How can we get to a place when you can ask for help? Tell children the truth. And they won't even have the confidence to do it until they know why they were born. A lot of them are never told that. They just told what your daddy isn't. You never told them what his daddy was to you. They need to know both sides, because it is imbalance, even the men. And remember that low self-esteem affects our choices in women. We think abuse We think we're supposed to suffer in a relationship. We think we're supposed to have a person that nags us. We think we're supposed to have a person that's always upset. That ain't normal. It ain't. So what a lot of them do, they have believed that, okay, women are victims, all men are dogs, we must all cheat. So now I got to dumb myself down to make sure she feels good all the time, when in actuality, most of her problems ain't got nothing to do with you. And a lot of men need to hear this. Anytime when you're putting someone's happiness over purpose in life, they may tolerate you for a couple of days and let you spend money on them, but secretly they resent you. And I've heard that from wives. Because a lot of women, I used to always ask this, I used to always wonder, I always hear women talking about not settling and settling. And I was just like, well, if you gave him the ultimatum, how did you settle for someone that you pressured to marry you? I don't understand, right? And then someone finally broke it down to me when I started observing it. A lot of women have given themselves ultimatums that they've never told anyone else about. So a lot of women have settled for the ultimatum that they had in their mind, and they found a dude that was willing to fit that ultimatum, and she found out the ultimatum was not her purpose, and she settled for her own ultimatum. It's not the dude, because he was still trying to make her happy by marrying her by a certain time. Well, he didn't know that he was not marrying her, he was marrying her ultimatum, and that ultimatum don't last forever. And he's wondering where his wife went. The key is he never met her. A lot of men are marrying women they have never married their wives before.
That's deep. That's a deep one. Listen, we have a lot of interaction in the chat, which is awesome because people are saying, listen, and I hope that I'm coming through clear because there was something that I was breaking up, but if I am, like, you can always watch the replay and it should be like perfectly fine because that was one of the comments as well. But they're saying that their son was experiencing some of these things that you were talking about, and one of the things that they did was they went to therapy. So they're saying, Black men, seek therapy. That is like very important because that is another way to help you with that communication piece. It's another way to help you with unpacking a lot of like what is going on with you and how can I communicate, why am I dealing with this? It just kind of helps pull a lot of those things together. And just kind of going back to the communication piece for me as a healthcare provider, and just for us, even when we go into therapy, when you go in there, you want to be open and honest. You've got to be able to tell us what's going on. We can't figure it out because the thing is, I've had some people to come in and they'll tell me, "Isn't it in your computer?" And I'm like, "It's not. It's not in here. I need you to give me some more information because the more that you give us, the better we are able to figure out, okay, this is actually what's happening, and then this is where you're trying to go, and let me see how I can help you get there." If you give us one-word answers, you're not really truthful, you're holding things back, and that is really going to affect a lot of what's going on with you. And like I said, my job is to prevent a lot of these diseases that are happening. And I can do that. But if you don't tell me certain things, if you don't help, like your job is to help families get better. But if people aren't coming in and saying, hey, this is really what's happening, and this is really what I say, because listen, I've been around young people, I've been around teenagers, I've been around, and sometimes, especially, I've had some parents talk about their teenagers, they're like, listen, when she says X, Y, and Z, I need Jesus to help me out because I just don't know what's going to happen in this moment because this girl, like, so, but if you don't go into the therapist and say, listen, this is what I'm thinking in that moment, then how can I help you process that so that you guys can get better and get to the next step and do what you need to do? I feel like there's going to be a part two because people are going to be like, hey, I need some more information. But right now, tell them how they can find you because you have the manhood mindset. That is your consulting business. You do that. You do a lot of things. You're a professor, like all of these different things. So let them know about the manhood mindset and then the other things that you do and how they can find you because I know they want to know.
Gotcha. Before I do that, I want to say something that's fresh on my mind. Before we tell kids they got to go get therapy, be honest about why you're sending them. Because a lot of people are sending kids to therapy and not honest about how we messed them up. I'm sending you to therapy because I was not honest with you for the first 8 years of your life. You don't, because right now, when I have a parent that brings me their kid and I will say, hey, do you know why you're here? They were like, no, she just told me I need to be here. I said, nope, mom, come here. Nope, we're finna do this today. Do not take your child to therapy until you can be honest about why you're taking them. Because if you think it's just something wrong with them, we have a problem. It's something wrong about the environment that we did or did not control that has affected our children, and we need to make sure there's a problem, but the child is not the problem. The child has been affected by the problem. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that. That's good. Yeah.
Got to be. So my business is called Manhood Mindset. It started off as a radio show just for people to call in and just talk about anything they wanted to have, get questions with, right? And I was a comm arts major in college. Ended up getting my school counseling degree and my doctorate in curriculum studies. So it's a consulting business and it is evolving. One thing I have found out that it does not have a label. It just has a purpose. And our purpose depends on who's in front of me. That's where I'm at. The other day they were like, what kind of business do you have? I said, it depends on who's in front of me. I just give information based off the questions you give me, right? So manhood mindset. A lot of people are like, why did you say manhood mindset? Well, I believe what people were saying. A lot of people said there were not enough men in the schools. There were not enough men in the homes. So I named it after what people said they needed. Now, either they were telling the truth or they weren't. So it's, you know what I mean? And most of the people who wanted to know what is in a man's mind, instead of putting it in there, they wanted to see what was in there to get out of it, were young ladies and grown women. A lot of people don't know how many older women who've never been told really what's going on with men. They've been repeating things that have been told by other women, and they really just want to see a perspective that they can use. They don't even want to agree with it. They just want to be able to utilize it so they don't waste time, right? Also an author. I want everybody to go to Amazon or Books A Million, and I wrote a book called Thrival Kit. The best teacher is always the best student. Again, it's not, you know how people say survival? Thrival Kit, the best teacher is always the best student, is basically a proactive approach to life itself. How we can actually look at mistakes as research instead of a label that we have less value because we made a mistake. A mistake is just like putting something under a microscope to see if your solution worked or not. Right? And if it did not work, only thing you have to do is not repeat the mistake, and that is research itself. Okay. So Thrival Kit, the best teacher is always the best student. I'm a professor at Georgia Southern University. I teach a diversity course for future teachers. And basically we talk about everything that can ruin a cookout or a birthday party, right? Religion, warfare. We talk about sex. We talk about sexism. We talk about classism, and talk about dehumanization and genocide. A lot of people don't know that genocide, one of the first steps in genocide is to erase all the men. That's a lot of people don't get it. And so when you're dealing with warfare, it's not because men can't benefit only from warfare. There are some groups of men who don't benefit at all. And our world has been at war since the very first conflict ever recorded. Right. So you got the book, you got Manhood Mindset. I'm also an educational consultant. So what I do is go into different K through 12 institutions, colleges and universities. And now I'm in religious institutions. I go to churches, mosques, synagogues. It doesn't matter. Anywhere where people are included, I can help them communicate. And I know exactly how to understand status and politics. Politics does affect our listening skills. Right? I'll give you an example. Some people think you have to be married to tell the truth about marriage. No, your status does not invalidate the statement. If I say you can't abuse someone to stay married, me being married or not does not invalidate my statement. So I know how to handle politics with trainings and conversations that we have, because honestly, a lot of us know how to talk, but a lot of us don't know how to communicate to save our lives. Yep. So manhoodmindset.com, Thrival Kit on Amazon, Books a Million. You can look up, I'm on social media, Manhood Mindset on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'm not a big TikToker, but I'm gonna have to do it if I want to keep feeding my family. Uh, and I'm Christopher. I'm on Manhood Mindset on Facebook, and Christopher Pugh is my personal page. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, Dr. Marion Christopher Pugh. LinkedIn is a very good tool. So if you want more information and you want me to come out to your institution, I'll be more than happy to work with your institution and answer any questions that you may have. I specialize in inappropriate questions. A lot of people don't know what I mean by that. All the questions you've been told not to ask, those are the ones that solve problems. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, your willingness to come and talk about it, because I know that it is something that is very much needed. I can tell that a lot of people really enjoyed the conversation that we had today. They're probably going to say, hey, okay, when y'all going to do the next one? What else are we talking about? But I really, really do appreciate it, because I know that it is a topic that, like you said, a lot of people aren't talking about it, but it's affecting us. And it's like, okay, well, what can we do about it? So I appreciate your time and being able to come and share today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for opening up the avenue to have this conversation. We are seeing where a lot of people are standoffish of this conversation, because we see a lot of people arguing. And I want people to hear me loud and clear. A lot of people who are talking about relationships, it's not that they have to be in a relationship to talk about it, but they do have to have a good intent behind the conversation. Now, there's a lot of people out here who are trying to confuse and argue. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to eliminate confusion and have a discussion so we can start putting these families back together, so our children will stop burning down the world because they're angry at us. I want people to hear me. Our children are angry. And the reason why they're angry, they're watching adults act just like them. Back in the day, when we couldn't see grown folks talking, we didn't know how they were acting, so we still had a level of respect. The reason why kids have a lower level of respect for us is because we're showing all of our low-level activity. We're showing them we're fighting with each other. We're throwing drinks at each other on the shows, Instagram. Now, watch that. I want everybody to hear me when I say this. A young lady was bullying someone else at a school, right? And I said, what makes you think that it's okay to bully? She said, well, I got Instagram. I see adults bully each other all the time. I didn't think it was a big deal. So regardless of whose fault you think it is, I'm not dealing with right or wrong. I'm dealing with true and false, cause and effect. We got a lot of work to do. And Man Mindset is here to at least make a contribution.
Well, thank you so much. Listen, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us today, for watching. Be sure to continue to tune in, because we will continue to bring you great content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and turn on your notification. If you are in the area and you're looking for a primary care doctor, you can also go to the link to get that information as well. Until next time, we'll see you soon, and we're wishing you much healing. Take care.